Hi, this is TheTigerwolf55. First, I'd like to apologize. I know my channel has been really dead lately. Between me retiring from auditions on YouTube and nothing going on with cinema semantics, it's been more than quiet here. But there are good reasons for it. I'm working on the Off-White dub with Subsonic Fire, I'm trying to get my real life sorted out, and I do promise the Ninja and I are trying to get cinema semantics rolling again. It's just difficult to sync up our schedules right now. In the meantime, though, I was talking with a friend a little while ago about childhood memories, and the subject of movies had come up. Specifically, the stuff that we found disturbing as kids and how sometimes family movies can have the most traumatizing scenes in them. Now, I can honestly say that as a kid, this wasn't the case most of the time. Stuff like watching Bambi's mom get shot didn't really affect me, and watching the Terminator rip off his own flesh from his arm in Terminator 2 at the age of 7, well, that was just kinda cool. But there's always that one scene that hits you more than you think it will. And I thought it might be a little fun, for you at least, maybe a little embarrassing for me, to list the top 5 most disturbing movie moments from my childhood. Now, keep in mind, this is just based off of my experiences, so some of these might seem silly to you. Different things hit different people, well, differently. Anyway, starting off at number 5, Babe. This was a movie that my grandparents had bought my sister when it came out, and I remember sitting down with her to watch it thinking, they don't get me Batman Forever, but they get her this. There's no justice in the world. The thing was boring. I'm really boring. I kept watching, waiting for something to happen, knowing that it wouldn't, since it was just a pig learning how to herd sheep. Whoopee, cutesy cutesy, yahoo. Then about halfway through the movie, a ewe named Ma, who had befriended Babe early in the movie and supported him in his efforts to become a sheep hog, is attacked by a group of vicious dogs. I wasn't expecting much, even if they did actually kill her off, since it would probably just show her being chased, cut to Babe running, and then we see the pig standing over a lifeless body after the fact, if even that happened. Instead, however, my jaw ended up dropping as I got to see the dogs bite down hard into Ma, tearing her apart on screen. It probably played out worse in my head than it actually did on the television, but I didn't enjoy watching that scene at all, and it was made worse by the fact that we do indeed have Babe standing over her lifeless body afterwards, getting blood on his snout, leading the farmer to think that he had killed Ma. For some reason, even though I was a Discovery Channel kid and had seen plenty of Impala getting torn up by lions and such in the savannah, this was worse and officially put me off to the movie for the rest of my life. It was cruel and hit me out of nowhere, landing it in the number 5 spot. And at number 4, we have Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. Now, if you've seen the movie, you probably know which scene I'm talking about. To those who don't, Khan is a villain from the original Star Trek show who had been banished by Kirk along with his gaggle of genetic supermen after trying to commandeer the Enterprise. They were exiled there to carve out a new life for themselves, but between the show and the movie, another planet in their solar system had blown up, shifting the orbit of their planet, causing ecological disasters that destroyed all life on the surface, with Khan and his men barely surviving, Khan swearing revenge against Kirk as a result. Cut to the movie, and Khan finally has his chance for revenge when Starfleet sends an away team down to Khan's planet for an experiment they're backing, mistaking it for the rock that blew up. Khan captures them and tells them that he plans on using them and their starship for his plans. To that, he reveals the last surviving native of the planet, a creature whose larvae can enter into the human brain and make the victim prone to suggestion. After explaining exactly what these creatures can and will do, both to the characters and the audience, he drops the slugs into their space helmets and locks them into place. We then watch as these men struggle helplessly while these slimy little worms crawl across their faces, moving closer to their ear canals. We listen as these characters scream in horror and pain before these worms crawl inside and the characters succumb to the brainwashing. This was a really intense scene and completely different from what I was used to from Star Trek as a kid. Ricardo Montalban is eerily nonchalant as he watches these men struggle in front of him while they scream in fear, knowing exactly what's going to happen to them and how he's going to use them afterwards. Now, I think part of the strength of the scene also lays in the suggested nature of what these maggots are doing inside the brains of these characters, leading you to imagine it for yourself, which, frankly, is sometimes worse than actually showing it all on screen. Especially if you have a vivid imagination like I did. It's an intense scene with tremendous buildup that really makes you feel for the suffering that these men are going through, making me wonder when I was a kid if Star Trek had just decided to go horror on me, even without the blood and guts of stuff like Alien. Next, at number 3, is Fantasia. probably the most obvious pick on this list for a lot of people. I was, I think 4, maybe 5 when I watched the movie for the first time. We were visiting my grandparents in Virginia for vacation, and my grandmother had popped the tape in while the adults talked in the kitchen. My little sis was there too, but she was all of 2 years old, if that. So I was basically watching it by myself. After vacation was over, my mom asked me if I wanted her and my father to purchase Fantasia for me. I was thinking something along the lines of, "Are you out of your mind? That thing's pure evil!" Yeah, I didn't remember the dancing flowers or the battling dinos or the sorcerer's apprentice, none of that. Only one segment popped in my head when I heard the word Fantasia. The night on Bald Mountain sequence. Now, I already knew about Satan, hell, demons, evil, and such by the time I watched it and what that was all about, but I wasn't prepared for just how heavy the imagery was going to hit me in that animation. Kudos to Disney for managing to show the power and darkness of pure evil, but sheesh! I was severely creeped out watching all the flying demons, ghosts, and ghouls crawling out of that decrepit cemetery at the command of a giant satanic figure looming over the mountain that he sat on, commanding these legions to dance in front of him while the mouth of hell opened up underneath them all, and then having this giant thing drop the other lesser creatures into the fire when it was displeased with their dance. Yeah. The sequence, like the rest of Fantasia, is free of any sound other than the music, which in and of itself didn't help me any, considering the nature of that music, but I could have sworn I heard the screams of tormented souls while I was watching it. It wasn't until later that I understood the purpose of the sequence when coupled with the Ave Maria scene that followed, showing that evil is no match for the power of God, no matter how powerful it is. But when I first watched it, all there was the darkness. Thanks, Disney, for showing me this satanic ritual. I really wanted to see how the minions of hell passed their time. At number 2, we have Superman 3. Yeah, okay, it might seem like it's ridiculous to follow up with one of the most lauded examples of pure, unadulterated darkness and evil depicted in a family film with something as goofy as Superman 3. But while Fantasia didn't do anything to my sleep cycle, Superman 3 did. Why? Well, in the movie, Richard Pryor plays a computer genius named Gus Gorman, who works for the film's Lex Luthor stand-in. As payment, he demands that a giant supercomputer be built according to his specs. The machine is finished, and it is indeed more powerful than any other computer on the planet, even powerful enough to kill Superman. However, as it's doing so, Mr. Gorman has a change of heart and attacks the computer when he's unable to shut it down himself. This sends the computer into a Skynet-like frenzy, going crazy in its attempt to preserve itself. The villains attempt to flee from the control center, but cheapo Luthor's sister gets caught in a tractor beam and pulled into the computer's mainframe, trapped by wires and tendrils. The computer then sets to fusing bits of metal and machinery onto her flesh as she screams in fear and panic for a short time before closing her eyes, apparently accepting what's happening to her and waiting for it to complete. When it does, she opens her eyes to reveal 2 silver soulless spheres staring out into the audience before she exits and begins to attack everyone in the complex, now just a slave to the supercomputer. The scene lasts for all of 30 seconds, but it felt like it went on for 5 minutes when I first watched it. I sat up in my bed staring at my far wall that night, wondering if it would slide open to reveal a giant machine that would try to turn me into its mindless puppet. The scene not only comes out of place when compared with the rest of the movie, and as a result is extra jarring in and of itself, but also seemed to do a really good job of showing this woman having her humanity stolen away from her. What was worse was that when she stopped fighting and just allowed it to finish, it just seemed to add to the creep factor. Points deducted for the silly hair that resulted afterwards, but watching a person get turned body and mind into a ruthless killing machine was really disturbing for my mind at the time. So, quick recap of my childhood nightmares. Number 5, Babe, The Death of Ma. An unexpectedly brutal scene that was the nail in the coffin between the relationship with this movie and I. At number 4, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Brain slugs. An intense scene with tremendous build that forces us to watch these men struggle against a monster, knowing the entire time that they can do nothing about it. And number 3, Fantasia, Night on Bald Mountain. The power of darkness and evil seemed to leap out of the screen at me, erasing all other memories of the movie from my little mind. Number 2, Superman 3, Cyborg Lady. Watching a woman's humanity stolen away in a scene meant to disturb in an otherwise non-disturbing movie caused me to lose a little sleep that night. Thank you for that. So, is there a movie that combines or surpasses these things that I mentioned already? Well, yes. Disney's second animated movie, Pinocchio. Ask most people, and I noticed they seem to say Monstro the ship-eating whale was the scariest thing about that movie. But for me, the most disturbing scene in that movie, or any movie from when I was a kid, was the Pleasure Island sequence. All of it. From the moment the cat and fox have their meeting with the coachman to when Jiminy Cricket drags Pinocchio off the island to save him from the fate of the other kids there. And during the scene, Pinocchio is tricked by the fox and cat, again, into visiting Pleasure Island along with all the other misbehaving, unruly boys of the city. Pinocchio listens to them, befriending a boy named Lampwick, who promises to show him how to have the best time there. And when they arrive, we see all of the boys there drinking, smoking, playing pool, I guess that's the movie's way of saying gambling, and participating in all kinds of destructive mayhem, literally tearing the place apart. Later on, Jiminy catches up with Pinocchio after walking through what is now a desolate island and then chides him for his behavior, getting laughed at by Lampwick for his troubles. Fed up, Jiminy leaves, but hears a strange noise and goes to investigate. When he does, he finds out where all the boys who were missing before have gone to and what's happened to them. Once he discovers, he rushes to Pinocchio to warn him before it's too late. Unfortunately, while Pinocchio is spared the fate of all the other boys, for the most part, Lampwick is not. The island apparently has an effect on boys who do bad deeds there, changing them into donkeys. Pinocchio only gains ears, a tail, and a bray because his heart was innocent, just led down the wrong path. But Lampwick, on the other hand, because he reveled and even taught others how to be bad, he's not. And we watch as he changes quickly into a donkey right in front of our and Pinocchio's eyes. The scene is the only one that I would call actually frightening when I was a kid, and the only scene in a movie, to my recollection, that has not stopped being creepy to me. It's still just as bad now as it was then. It has the unexpected brutality from Babe in the form of Lampwick's horrible transformation. The shadows, lighting, audio, and just the way that it was animated makes the transformation seem truly horrific. It has the intensity of Star Trek II in its build-up as it just continues to ratchet up the feeling that something bad is just around the corner from the moment we see that coachman, growing worse and worse until we finally see the fate of these boys and the big payoff in the transformation scene. It has the pervading evil of Fantasia, which, while not nearly as overt, obviously, is definitely there in the behavior of the boys, and even in just how the coachman is continually smiling knowingly in every scene he's in. And actually I wondered, and still sometimes do, whether or not he's actually the devil in disguise, just looking at this frame. Yee! Finally, it has the robbing of one's humanity from Superman 3. Lampwick clearly has had his humanity stolen from him, body and mind. In fact, I think he may have had it worse than any of the other kids there. There seems to be an implication that the level to which one changes to a donkey in this movie is dependent on the level of wickedness one committed while on the island, shown in how some of the boys managed to retain their speech after their change, and the fact that Pinocchio didn't fully transform himself. Lampwick, however, not only participated in every single bad act he could, he also served to try to corrupt Pinocchio as well, which is just another added thing that none of the other boys even had the chance to do. And given how after his donkification, he went berserk in fear and panic, destroying everything around him in the way that a wild donkey would, I would safely say that there was nothing left of the little boy crying out for his mama when all was said and done. And to make matters worse, that's the last we see of him. I watched this thing thinking, okay, that was bad, but they'll find a way to change them all back, right? Wrong. We never see Lampwick or any of the victims of Pleasure Island again, and the original book confirms the fact that Lampwick is confined to the life of a beast until his death. With all that, this is the only movie that I made my parents return. Twice. I watched it for the first time when I was somewhere between 4 and 6 years old, and the second time when I was 8, thinking I was older and could take it by now. Nope, still just as bad. And then the film went 0 for 3 in my house when my sister, when building her Disney collection, bought it, laughed at me when I said how bad the scene was, then did exactly what I did after watching it. And did I mention she was 16 at the time? And again, this was only Disney's second animated film. The one they worked on before this one was Snow White. Talk about a pendulum swing. Like I said, I still find this scene just as disturbing today as I did then, possibly even more so because I understand some more of the context. Well, that's my list. Hope you enjoyed me embarrassing myself. At the very least, I don't think that these things affected my growth into an adult. And if they did, then I at least know who to send my therapy bills to. This is the Tiger Wolf 55. See you around.